Hi, my name is Catherine Kokinius, and today I'll be talking about different hand washing techniques. To grow our bacteria, we grow them on TSA plates or tryptic soy agar plates that have nutrients that bacteria need to grow. As always, we'll have a control plate to show what it would be like if there wasn't any bacteria. We will have a plate with no hand washing, a plate that we use a hand wipe with from Kirkland without any alcohols or chemicals, 70% ethanol hand sanitizer, and 10 seconds of hand washing with soap, as well as CDC's recommendation of 30 seconds of hand washing with soap. So, in order to standardize our procedure, I put my hand in a bag of dirt between each of the techniques, and my dog was very curious about that. So here is what we did for no hand washing. We just had my dirty hand and took a swab and wet the swab so it could pick up bacteria a little bit easier. And then I rubbed the swab back and forth over my palm, on each of my fingers, in between the fingers, and underneath my nails. After that was completed, I would then take that swab and rub it on our tryptic soy agar plate, our TSA plate. These plates would then be put into an incubator at 37 degrees Celsius, which is a temperature that bacteria like to grow at, for 24 hours to see what grew. And this is our positive control plate. Here I have one of those wet wipes and again my dirty hand, and I did my best to get as much dirt off of my hand as possible with that wet wipe. And this wet wipe, like I said, doesn't contain any alcohols or chemical binding agents. It's just a wet wipe, has aloe based. And then once I did that, I took a swab, wet that swab, and did the same procedure. Rubbed it all over my hands and between my fingers and underneath my nails, and then plated it again on a different TSA plate. This TSA plate had the same exact incubation times and placement as the other one so that we can compare them. So we wanted to do a wipe just in case, let's say for example you were camping or outside, to see how effective a wipe would be in washing your hands if you didn't have access to water or maybe you forgot your hand sanitizer. After that, I got my hand dirty once more and decided to try hand sanitizer. So I put a good amount of hand sanitizer on my hand. It was 70% alcohol-based hand sanitizer. CDC recommends above 60% at least. And then I rubbed that around all over my hands, underneath my nails, in between my fingers as much as possible, and let it dry. Also, just to note, if you do have a large bottle of hand sanitizer, make sure that it's closed, because if you don't, the alcohol will evaporate from that particular bottle. Then followed the same procedure and used the swab all over my hand, as you can see, underneath my nails, just as before. And then I plated that onto a TSA plate. So like I said, if you have one of these larger bottles of ethanol, you need to make sure that it remains closed, or you can use a smaller bottle just to make sure that that alcohol doesn't evaporate, because that's an important part. After that, I got my hand dirty once again and decided to wash my hand for 10 seconds with liquid soap. So as you can see, I wash my hands, rubbing them back and forth, getting between the fingers, around the wrists, underneath the nail bed, and I only waited for 10 seconds. I didn't rub them on any paper towel or anything, I just swabbed it immediately after. And same procedure as before, as you would imagine. And then took that swab and I put that on another TSA plate, following the same procedure. My hand once more, got some soap, and washed my hands with water for the recommended 30 seconds, counting each way, but you can also, as you've probably seen from other videos, sing a song to make sure that you really reach that 30-second mark. Now we'll stop here for a second to see which one you think will have the most growth. Here is a picture of our control plate. This is our negative control. And as you can see, there's no bacterial colonies growing on this particular plate. And that's what we expect, because we didn't actually swab anything on this plate, which is good. Here is a picture of our positive control, our no hand washing plate. And this is also what we would expect, because I got my hand dirty by putting it into that dirt, and I didn't use any hand washing technique, and then we plated whatever was on my hand. So this shows that my hand was in fact dirty with bacteria. It's also important to note that on a TSA plate, you can only see bacteria. You're not actually seeing any viruses, just bacteria. So when we actually looked at our different treatments and compared to our wet wipes and comparing that to our positive control, which has no hand washing, there's actually a similar amount of growth on both plates. So while the wet wipes did get off some of the dirt, it didn't do anything to the bacteria. And when looking at the ingredients of the wet wipes pack, we will note that there was no alcohol-based or chemical binding agents inside those wet wipes. Those were meant to be gentle used wet wipes, and no chemicals were a part of that. So that kind of makes sense in terms of why we didn't see any lower bacterial growth on that particular plate. When looking at the hand sanitizer with 70% alcohol, compared to no hand washing, you can see that there is less bacterial growth on the hand sanitizer plate than there is on the no hand washing plate, which is good. The alcohol itself is a desiccant, and we will talk a little bit about that in our Q&A. And what that does is it essentially breaks apart that membrane of bacteria and viruses, which we'll explain a little bit more in detail later. Here is our 10 seconds of hand washing with soap plate compared to our dirty hand. And as you can see, there are less bacterial colonies on the 10-second hand washing plate than there were on our dirty hand by itself. But note that it's not like there isn't any bacteria on there. There's still a good amount on there. So when we compare that to our hand sanitizer and our 10 seconds of hand washing, it actually looks quite similar. So what about the CDC recommended 30 seconds of soap and water? When we look at that particular plate, we note that there's far less bacteria on that than there is on the no hand washing plate. And there's a reason why this is the recommendation. Soap's chemical structure is really important in why it gets rid of bacteria and viruses. Also, the amount of time that you wash your hands and the physical act of scrubbing helps as well, which we'll talk about later in our Q&A. So when looking at the 2 different hand washing treatments and our positive control, you can see that 30 seconds of hand washing, that amount of time really does matter compared to 10 seconds of hand washing. So if you need to sing a song to get to that 30 seconds, definitely do so. It's really helpful.